In a surprising turn of events that captured national attention this week, Barron Trump, the 18-year-old son of former President Donald Trump and Melania Trump, demonstrated remarkable poise in addressing controversial remarks made about his mother by veteran journalist Sarah Mitchell of the Daily Chronicle. The incident, which unfolded during a prestigious Georgetown University panel discussion on the evolving role of political families in American democracy, showcased the younger Trump and #039's emerging public presence and his ability to navigate complex family media dynamics with unexpected maturity. Family members, regardless of their political affiliations, deserve to be critiqued for their actions and policies, not for xenophobic assumptions about their backgrounds or personal attacks on their character, Barron stated during the panel, directly addressing Mitchell and #039's recent opinion piece that had questioned his mother and #039's qualifications and background. His measured response earned praise from media observers across the political spectrum. The exchange marked Barron and #039's first significant public engagement with the press regarding his family, breaking years of relative silence maintained throughout his father and #039's presidency in subsequent years. Political analysts noted that his approach signaled a potentially different style of handling media relations compared to the confrontational stance often adopted by other members of the Trump family. The controversy began 3 weeks ago when Sarah Mitchell, a decorated journalist with over 2 decades of experience covering Washington politics, published what would become a heavily debated opinion piece titled The Selective Silence, examining the former First Lady and #039's public absence. Mitchell and #039's article, which appeared in the Daily Chronicle and #039's Sunday edition, criticized Melania Trump and #039's limited participation in post-White House humanitarian initiatives, comparing her involvement to that of other former First Ladies. However, the piece drew immediate backlash when it veered into speculation about cultural attitudes and what Mitchell termed inherited privilege, with several passages that many readers interpreted as thinly veiled xenophobic comments about Mrs. Trump and #039's European background. The piece crossed several lines, noted Dr. Elena Rodriguez, professor of journalism ethics at Columbia University. While it and #039's perfectly legitimate to analyze a public figure and #039's engagement with social causes, Mitchell and #039's article contained unnecessary insinuations about Mrs. Trump and #039's background that distracted from any valid critiques of her public service record. The timing of the article proved particularly controversial, coming just days after Melania Trump had announced a new children and #039's education initiative focusing on digital literacy and online safety. The former First Lady and #039's spokesperson, Margaret Chin, had characterized Mitchell and #039's piece as a deliberate attempt to undermine Mrs. Trump and #039's charitable work through personal attacks. What might have remained a typical media skirmish took an unexpected turn when Georgetown University announced its upcoming panel on political families in the digital age. The event organizers had already secured Barron Trump and #039's participation weeks before Mitchell and #039's article was published, as part of the university and #039's broader symposium on evolving political dynamics in America. By coincidence, or perhaps editorial design, Sarah Mitchell was also scheduled as a panelist, setting the stage for what many expected to be a tense confrontation between the young Trump and his mother and #039's critic. The Healy Hall Auditorium at Georgetown University was filled to capacity on Tuesday afternoon, with students, faculty, and media representatives gathered for what had become the most anticipated panel of the symposium. The tension in the room was palpable as moderator Dr. James Harper, Dean of the School of Public Policy, opened the discussion. Initially, the panel proceeded along expected lines, with discussions about social media and #039's impact on political families and the challenges of maintaining privacy in the digital age. Sarah Mitchell, dressed in a charcoal blazer and seated at one end of the panel, contributed insights about media responsibility and the public and #039's right to information. Barron Trump, in a navy suit that emphasized his now 6 and #039's frame, sat at the opposite end, occasionally taking notes. The turning point came during the Q&A session when a student asked about the balance between journalistic scrutiny and personal attacks. Mitchell defended her recent article, arguing that public figures must expect and accept thorough examination of their roles and influences. She added that her piece was fundamentally about accountability, not personal background. It was then that Barron Trump, who had remained quietly engaged throughout the session, requested to respond. What followed was a 3-minute statement that would later be described by the Washington Post as a masterclass in dignified disagreement. "Ms. Mitchell," he began, his voice steady and clear, "I and #039 studied journalism as part of my coursework here at Georgetown, and I understand the vital role that critical reporting plays in our democracy. However, I and #039 also learned about the responsibility that comes with that role." He continued by methodically addressing specific passages from Mitchell and #039's article, contrasting them with his mother and #039's documented charitable work and public service initiatives. "What troubled me most," he explained, "wasn't #039 the criticism of my mother and #039's public engagement, that and #039's fair game. It was the subtle but clear implications about her background and worth as an American. Those statements don't and #039 just affect my mother, they affect millions of naturalized citizens who contribute to our nation every day." The young Trump and #039's response, delivered without notes or preparation, drew particular praise for its focus on principles rather than personalities. Dr. Harper later commented that it was one of the most mature handlings of public criticism I and #039 witnessed in my 30 years of moderating political discussions. If you and #039 found value in our detailed reporting, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. By subscribing, you and #039 stay updated on all our future reports and exclusive content. The impact of Barron Trump and #039's measured response reverberated far beyond the wood-paneled walls of Healy Hall. Within hours, video clips of the exchange spread across social media platforms, garnering millions of views and sparking widespread discussion about civility in political discourse. Sarah Mitchell, who had maintained her composure during Trump and #039's response, approached him after the panel. Witnesses reported a brief but significant interaction between the two. "I appreciate the thoughtfulness of your response," Mitchell was heard saying. "While I stand by my critique of public figure accountability, I acknowledge that certain passages in my article could have been better framed." The young Trump and #039's handling of the situation drew praise from unexpected quarters. Progressive commentator Rachel Martinez of The Atlantic wrote, "In an era of inflammatory rhetoric and gotcha journalism, Barron Trump and #039's response offers a refreshing template for handling criticism." He managed to defend his mother while simultaneously elevating the discussion to address broader societal implications. Conservative media figures, who had initially prepared to launch a full-scale attack on Mitchell, found themselves recalibrating their response. "When the subject of your criticism demonstrates more professionalism than you anticipated, it forces you to raise your own standards of discourse," noted veteran political analyst Michael Whitman on his primetime show. Perhaps most notably, the incident sparked a broader conversation about the children of political figures and their role in public discourse. Dr. Catherine Chen, director of the Center for Political Family Studies at Harvard University, observed, "What we witnessed wasn't #039 just a son defending his mother. It was a young adult choosing to engage with criticism in a way that added value to the public conversation rather than inflaming tensions." Several journalism schools reached out to both Trump and Mitchell, requesting permission to use their exchange as a case study in media ethics courses. Georgetown University and #039's Dean of Journalism, Dr. Patricia Reynolds, announced plans to develop a workshop series on constructive criticism in political journalism inspired by the incident. As the day drew to a close, #Barron response and #civil discourse were trending on multiple social media platforms, with users from across the political spectrum sharing their own experiences of navigating family criticism in the public eye. The conversation had evolved beyond the initial controversy to touch on broader themes of media responsibility, immigrant dignity, and the changing nature of political discourse in America. As the dust settled on the Georgetown exchange, what began as a personal confrontation evolved into a catalyst for several important national conversations. Melania Trump and #039's digital literacy initiative, which had been overshadowed by Mitchell and #039's initial article, saw a surge in public interest and support. Sometimes it takes a moment of tension to bring important work into focus, noted Dr. James Liu, director of the Digital Education Alliance, who had been collaborating with Mrs. Trump and #039's initiative. The attention generated by this incident has actually helped highlight the critical nature of children and #039's online safety education. In a particularly meaningful development, several prominent journalists of immigrant backgrounds began sharing their own experiences in American media. Maria Hernandez, a Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter, penned a thoughtful LinkedIn post that went viral, watching Barron Trump defend not just his mother, but by extension all naturalized Americans, reminded me of the complex dynamics we navigate daily in this profession. We must be able to critique public figures while being mindful of our own biases about what makes someone American enough. The incident also sparked a series of constructive changes within the Daily Chronicle itself. Editor-in-Chief Robert Parker announced the formation of a new editorial review board focused on cultural sensitivity and fair coverage. Quality journalism requires constant self-examination, Parker stated in a memo to staff. We and #039 recommitted to maintaining our tradition of hard-hitting reporting while ensuring our coverage reflects the diverse nature of American society. Sarah Mitchell, demonstrating her own capacity for growth, published a follow-up piece titled Reflection and Response, When Criticism Requires Self-Examination. The article, which didn't end #039 retract her original concerns about public figure accountability, acknowledged the need for more nuanced discussion of immigrant contributions to American public life. Georgetown University seized the educational opportunity presented by the situation. The School of Public Policy announced a new series of workshops titled Beyond Soundbites, Navigating Complex Public Discourse, featuring case studies from the Trump-Mitchell exchange. What we witnessed here wasn't #039 just conflict resolution, explained Dr. Harper, it was a masterclass in how public figures can engage with criticism constructively. Meanwhile, Barron Trump and #039's measured approach continued to resonate across generational lines. Youth political organizations reported increased interest in workshops on public speaking and conflict resolution, with many young people citing his example as inspiration for more thoughtful political engagement. As media analysts and political scientists began examining the lasting implications of the Trump-Mitchell exchange, a consensus emerged that this incident could serve as a template for future public discourse. The event and #039's significance extended beyond its immediate impact, suggesting potential long-term changes in how political families and media figures interact. Dr. Jonathan Meyer, director of the Center for Political Communication at Stanford University, conducted a detailed analysis of the exchange and #039's unique characteristics. What made this interaction particularly noteworthy was its departure from the established script, he explained in a recent academic paper. Instead of escalating conflict, we witnessed a rare moment where both parties ultimately contributed to elevating the conversation. The incident also caught the attention of international observers. British political commentator Emma Blackwood of the BBC noted, "American political discourse has often been characterized by its combative nature. This exchange offers an alternative model that other democracies might find worth studying." Several key factors emerged from expert analysis. First, the timing and setting played crucial roles. The academic environment of Georgetown University provided a neutral ground that encouraged thoughtful dialogue rather than confrontation. "The setting matters enormously," explained Dr. Lisa Chen of Yale and #039's Political Science Department. A university campus, with its emphasis on learning and intellectual exchange, created the perfect conditions for this type of constructive dialogue. Second, the generational aspect proved significant. Barron Trump represents a new generation of political family members who have grown up under intense media scrutiny, noted Dr. Rebecca Santos, author of Digital Politics, The Next Generation. His approach suggests a more sophisticated understanding of media dynamics than we and #039 seen from previous political offspring. Third, the response demonstrated the power of preparation and emotional intelligence. What and #039's particularly interesting is how Trump managed to defend his mother while simultaneously addressing broader societal issues, observed Dr. Marcus Williams, a specialist in political psychology at UCLA. This kind of multi-layered response shows a sophisticated understanding of public discourse. Looking ahead, several institutions announced plans to incorporate lessons from this incident into their curricula. The Columbia School of Journalism began developing a new course titled Ethical Criticism, Balancing Accountability and Respect in Political Reporting. Meanwhile, the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard added the case study to its leadership program, focusing on how public figures can respond to criticism effectively while advancing constructive dialogue. 2 months after the Georgetown panel, the ripple effects of Barron Trump and #039's response continue to influence American political discourse. What began as a potentially contentious confrontation has transformed into a teachable moment about dignity, maturity, and the power of measured response in an age of rapid-fire reactions. The Daily Chronicle and #039's readership surveys revealed an interesting shift in public sentiment. Our readers increasingly express appreciation for nuanced coverage, noted the paper and #039's public editor, Victoria Chong. They and #039 demanding more context and less sensationalism, which directly reflects the standards set during the Trump-Mitchell exchange. Sarah Mitchell and Barron Trump and #039's paths crossed again last week at a media literacy conference in Washington, D.C., where they participated in a joint presentation on building bridges through respectful dialogue. Their collaborative appearance demonstrated how initial conflict can evolve into meaningful partnership when both parties prioritize understanding over antagonism. Melania Trump and #039's digital literacy initiative has since partnered with 3 major tech companies to develop comprehensive online safety programs for schools. Sometimes, the best way to answer criticism is to let your work speak for itself, Mrs. Trump stated in a rare public comment about the incident. The initiative has now reached over 500,000 students nationwide. The most enduring impact, however, may be on future generations of political family members and journalists. As one Georgetown student noted in the campus newspaper, "We witnessed something rare that day, a moment where everyone chose to be their best selves rather than their most reactive selves." The story of Barron Trump and #039's response to criticism of his mother serves as a powerful reminder that in an era of instant reactions and viral outrage, taking the high road ISN and #039's just morally commendable, it and #039's also incredibly effective. It demonstrates that defending one and #039's family and maintaining dignity aren't and #039's mutually exclusive, and that the most powerful responses often come from a place of measured reflection rather than immediate reaction. In a world where conflict often brings out our worst instincts, this story reminds us that our greatest strength lies not in our ability to attack, but in our capacity to respond with dignity and wisdom. It shows us that true victory doesn't and #039 come from destroying our critics, but from transforming potential conflict into opportunities for growth and understanding. Thank you for watching this complete coverage of this remarkable story. If you found value in this thoughtful exploration of modern political discourse, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We and #039 especially love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about Barron Trump and #039's approach to handling criticism? How can we encourage more constructive dialogue in our own communities? What lessons can we all learn from this exchange?